Hello everyone, this is a rant about how a lot of people seem to have this idea about how games need to function in the way that how they portray themselves. And whilst people have different likes and dislikes of what different types of games that they like and what they like to do in games, that's fully understandable. I understand that what I like other people won't like. But some people have this idea that that a particular thing that they don't like is a wrong way to do it. And I'm talking about one thing in particular, and I'm talking about the way that games hide the gaminess of a game. And people do seem to think that this is, when games make the gaminess of a game clear, that this is a universally bad thing. I don't think it is. In fact, I prefer gaminess. I once had someone say to me, because I was once talking to somebody, and we were talking about, I think we were talking about Final Fantasy XII, or at least I brought it up, and I can't remember exactly what triggered the conversation, and I can't remember exactly where the conversation, what particularly brought this up, but I think I was talking about the license board and how that works. And he said to me, and I can't remember exactly what triggered this, but he said to me, the whole point of a game is to make you forget that you're playing a game. Now that felt really strange when he said that to me, because for one, I didn't agree, and two, it seems strange that someone would say that, because I love games, and I love gaminess, and the things that consist within games, the things that create what a game is, and the things that make what a game is, like all the different variables and all the different statistics and different algorithms. I love all that stuff. I'm not saying that I purposefully go out of my way to research the algorithms of a game that I love. I'm not going to necessarily think like, oh, I really like this game, I wonder how damage is calculated, and then I go and find it's like, oh, it's level times so and so, da 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 da. I'm not necessarily going to do that, but I love the fact that there is thought that has gone into those things, regardless of the fact of they may be good or may be bad. Some damage calculations might be atrocious, but I do in general like the idea that there are things like that where the thought has clearly gone into it and it's clearly a part of the game. And this person was saying that games shouldn't do that, because the idea is that you're not supposed to think it's a game and you're not supposed to remember it's a game, you're supposed to be immersed in the world. He didn't say that exactly, but that's what he was getting at. He was like, you're supposed to be immersed in the world and think that it's more of a real thing and not a game. But that is based on the assumption that games are about projecting yourself into a particular real life situation that you wouldn't encounter. And I use an example of Dead Space. You might say that the whole point of Dead Space is to imagine that you are in space and this is all happening to you, and to get you immersed in thinking that you are Isaac. Is he called Isaac? I think he's called Isaac. I might be wrong. I don't really know anything about Dead Space, but I think he's called Isaac, the main character. To think that you're him, and so the idea that they don't have a health bar, where the actual health bar itself is implanted onto the back of the character's suit, where you can it's literally like blended into it's actually part of the graphics themselves. Well, first of all, I'm not so sure. Your character moves around a lot, and the body shakes as you move, and there might be all sorts of different angles that you can go in. I don't know exactly, but it just seems not very stable. I would prefer just having a full-out health bar, like in the top corner or whatever, and that would do me fine, and I love that. Because I love the gaminess of it, and I like to know exactly, well, no, not exactly, but I like to know that I'm playing a game because I love games as a concept. What I don't do, and I think probably not most of us, But I think there are people that don't play games simply because they like the whole game aspect of it, but rather it's because they would rather to them it's a means. Games are a means to an end. It's a means to reach this level of experiencing a fantasy world. And like I said before, if that's what they want to do, and if that's how they enjoy their games, then so be it. But the way this person, when they said this to me, he was saying that the whole point of games is to make you forget it's a game. Like, this is what everyone wants, and the fact that they are games isn't the end goal, and that isn't what makes it fun. And the fact that they are games, the gameness of them, is just a means of which to get to this fantasy, like this role-playing experience. And I don't like that, because even though, yeah, some people might like that, I don't want people to think that that's all what games are about. They are a means to an end. It's not that people want to play games, just that we have to play games if you want to experience being in space. I can't be an astronaut, and I'll never land on an alien planet. So the only way I can ever experience anything like that is to play Dead Space. I don't like that idea as a notion that is what games are about. Games are a means to an end. Whereas I would say games and the gaminess of them, the gameness of them is just inherently fun, and that is what makes them enjoyable, and that's why I love games. Of course, some games can be terrible, and those games, well, they're terrible, so... And no matter what the gaminess of them, I will say, okay, this gameness, the statistics and algorithms and the programming in this may be terrible. A good example of that is any of the games within Action 52, where you can't... But I think there's one of them on the NES version where there's all these like Elton John heads or whatever, and you try to like move forward and jump, and it's so ridiculous to control, and you fall through most of the platforms. That's a game of bad gaminess. And I think that the gaminess of the games is what makes them so great. And as much as other people may not feel the same way, and as much as other people may not care about the gaminess of games, some people might not care at all, some people might care a little bit, but I just think it's unfair to like pretend that the gaminess of games and the mechanical side of everything is just a means to an end, and it's only there because we have to have it there, and we don't enjoy that inherently, and games can never be like that, because I would say that games have always done that for me. And for people to say that I'm wrong, and people to say like, oh, you like this thing, and this thing isn't, we shouldn't have this thing, but this thing is the thing that we need to have in order to get what we want, I don't like that at all. And I think as a byproduct of people thinking like that, we are having games that are kind of removing the gaminess of it. Of course, no matter what, you are going to have programming and algorithms and different calculations and all that sort of stuff. That's just a given. You can't have a game without that. But at the same time, we're having games now where nothing's really like, you don't really have this like display as much. All the menus are shorter, and every menu that you go into is like the Pip-Boy on Fallout 3. The Pip-Boy, no, I'm not saying the Pip-Boy is bad at all. It's perfectly fine, it's perfectly functional. There's probably a few things wrong with it that I can't think of right now in terms of user friendliness, but as far as it goes about how you access the menu, then you look at the Pip-Boy, the gadget that's on your arm, that's perfectly fine. But I worry that people like demand that sort of thing, because people demand that realism, and this also goes back to the real life connection thing I was talked about before. And people demand that removal of the gaminess, because people just will not settle for like just pressing a button and having a menu appear on the screen, because to me that is just better in that it's easier to get around. It looks better. It's nicer. Of course, you can have some menus that look atrocious, Final Fantasy X, I would say, is probably one of the most ugliest menu screens I've ever seen, with those clashing colours. Someone probably disagrees with that, but I just think Final Fantasy X has a bad menu screen. But anyway, I don't like this idea that people won't settle for health bars. People won't settle for displaying things on the screen and having all these things being shown to us and having the gaminess of it there, because I love that stuff, and I don't want these things to go away. And now that we have a big example of this is when you've got games like like any of the Call of Duty games, or like Infamous, I think, and there's loads of games like this where with like regenerating health, and Uncharted, where you don't have a health bar, but the screen changes to a different colour to represent pain, and then it fades out. It's hardly... thing is with that is that it takes away from the gaminess, because you don't have the stats and the bars and everything, but it's hardly quantifiable. It's not really like you can look at one shade of red and then have another shade of red with slightly more saturation, and being able to say, oh yes, I've definitely got an extra fifth of health at this saturation of red. So, and I don't like that. Not that I want it completely gone, but I don't like the idea that that's what's going to stick around forever, and that's what all games are going to be like. I don't think that's what all games are going to be like, not at all. But people seem to want all games to be like that, and I just wish and I hope that they don't. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you all next time.